Hey, welcome back to the Group Project Podcast. This is episode number 109. And I would like to welcome Bobby. Oh gosh, I'm going to mess this up. Pollicino. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did. Good job,
Bobby
Jared.
Pollicino. Hey, welcome to the show, Bobby. Hey, I appreciate you joining me today. How's it going?
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much. Doing well.
Cool. So, hey, Bobby is the head of upper school at the Bullis School in Potomac, Maryland, which is basically DC, Washington, DC. Is that
Just
correct?
outside. Yep. Yeah.
Cool. And you've been there for 8 years. You're doing some cool things. We spent a little bit of time before the show talking. He's got a book coming out here. This sounds like the next fall.
Yep.
Which we're going to talk about a little bit, but we connected on social media, I don't know, 6 or 7 months ago, and
Yeah.
he's just doing some really cool things out there. So yeah, hey man. And also I want to talk a little bit. You enjoy the reading, the writing, and some jujitsu. Is that correct?
That is right. Yes.
So, okay, I'm going to kind of jump ahead. What jujitsu? What is jujitsu? How is that different than from all the other martial arts?
So it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu that I train. And it's a lot more grappling. So you're going to spend more time on the ground than you would in some of the other martial arts. So, it's one that you're not going to have the striking per se, but it's more maybe some of what folks see in UFC when you see, an arm bar or some of the chokes that you see out there. So it's more about submissions.
Okay. So let's come back to that for sure. I know very little about UFC. I know it's been big for a number of years.
Yeah.
So let's come back to that. Let's learn a little bit more about that. But hey, maybe just start off by sharing, educational experience, leadership background, how you got to this position of head of upper school at the Bullis School.
Sure. So I went to large public school in upstate New York, 500 in a class, so about 2,000 in the school. And that was sort of my background and experience. Went off to college where I played lacrosse in college and majored in biology. Wasn't really sure what I was going to get into after that, but my brother had gone into education. His wife was a teacher. And was fortunate enough at the summer after I graduated to get a call about an opening at a boarding school, and went down and started teaching at a boarding school at 22 years old, right out of college, and was shocked, quite honestly, at how much I enjoyed it. Seeing those aha moments in the biology classroom, I majored in biology, was just really exciting. And then I enjoyed coaching. I coached soccer, basketball, and lacrosse. I was coaching 3 seasons for all 4 years I spent at boarding school. And part of being a coach, you start to want to learn from other coaches, and you do some reading and you find out about the leadership that goes into that. After 4 years at a boarding school, which I sort of equate that to dog years almost. I think it felt like about 20 when you live on campus with the students and weekend duty and all of those things. I moved up here outside of the DC area as a science teacher and a coach, and I've been at Bullis since 2003, and have just had some opportunities to take on some leadership roles as our dean of students, our varsity boys lacrosse coach, and then, as you said, I've spent the last 8 years as the head of the upper school.
So those of us, you say upper school, middle school, lower school,
Great, yeah.
And it's maybe tell us a little bit about that. The Bullis School, I feel like, and I hope I'm saying that right. I feel like it's a really well-known school, whether it's the athletes that come out of there or just how prestigious it is. Maybe just tell us a little bit more about your school.
Sure. So it's a K-12 independent day school. So we have 900 students, and we're all on a singular campus. We were founded in 1930, actually, by Commander Bullis and his wife Lois as a postgraduate school to get into the military academies. So that's how we started out. Went co-ed in 1979. And in the last, few decades have really grown and developed in this area, and have had an opportunity to work with some amazing students and faculty. Some of the work that we've done, we were one of the first high schools in the country to have an entrepreneurship program, and have developed a really exciting program that including a Shark Tank at the end of every year with a $10,000 prize to the winning team. So that's been great. We have had some strong athletic programs over the years, and student athletes that have gone on to compete in college at the Ivy League level, the ACC, the Big Ten, and in lacrosse, football. We've had basketball players go off as well. We do our best to provide our students an opportunity to be successful in whatever path that they choose once they go on from Bullis.
Very cool. Very cool. You said you've been there in that position for 8 years.
Yeah.
One question I love asking is, what are the biggest lessons you've learned? If you go back to, if you look at now versus 8 years ago, where's the biggest growth been, or what were some of the biggest mistakes you used to make?
It's a great question. As I came into this role, I had said to myself, I want a new set of eyes. I need to have that coming in, having been at the school for almost 10 years at that point. And I reference in my book, Principled Leader, that'll be due out later this fall. We were sitting around our weekly administrative team meeting, and the head of school asked me if I had my finger on the pulse of the faculty. And I said, no. And I think some people were surprised at my candor. And I said, ultimately, not because I don't care or because I don't want to know how things are. My background growing up, blue collar, middle class family in upstate New York. Father was a combat veteran in the Marine Corps in the Vietnam War. And, my brother and I were taught just to do our jobs. Didn't matter how we felt. Didn't matter if we liked it or not. Like, you took the trash out. Didn't matter how you felt about it. And that was sort of my approach. That was how I approached my own teaching and coaching, was I'm going to do my best. And I didn't always think I need to check on my people. I need to check on who's around me, how they're feeling. Do they feel that they can come and be their best selves? Why or why not? And that was a hard lesson in that first year, but something that stuck with me, that I really need to start doing that. The other piece along the way has been, asking for help and support. I know you talk about this, I've talked about this recently in one of your newsletters, Jared, that you can't do it all. You shouldn't try to do it all. And you need to give people opportunities to step in and help out because they want to learn, they want to grow, and they're capable. So those are probably the two most important lessons.
I hear that all the time. I mean, I've done these episodes for a couple of years now, and that is the one thing that, like, not being afraid to ask for help. This, it's just, it just comes up time and time again in terms of people's biggest, the biggest mistakes they make early in their career. Now, I think I asked you this, when you say upper school, is that basically just like high school? Is that, am I thinking about that right? Okay.
Yep. So we are in our upper school, which is high school, essentially. Yeah. Grades 9 through 12. We have about 550 students that we have here.
Okay. So what does a normal day look like for you? Everybody I talk to, there's some commonalities between administrators. But yeah, maybe share, what does that day look like for you?
I'm very fortunate as a K-12 school here to have all three of my children at the school with me. So I am the driver for my three kids to school. So my day starts off with all three of my kids in the car with me on the way to school. And my youngest two, hoping my first grader and fourth grader, that we time it up just right, that they can just run to class and not have to come and sit in dad's office before school starts. But that's every morning. And I feel very fortunate to have that opportunity to have my kids at school with me. I think it's hard to say what day to day is. And I think administrators would appreciate that, because you never know, what might pop up on your radar. I like to think about sort of what's a normal week, at the end of the week on Friday, what went well, what are some things that were consistent? So, what's my student time? How am I building that in? When am I spending time in the cafeteria, in the hallways? Spring finally seems to have showed up here outside of DC. It's in the high 60s today, spending some time out on the patio, and checking in with kids. And then also with teachers as well, getting into classrooms. How many times was I able to get into a classroom each day and for how long, and making sure I had that on my calendar. And then following up with the faculty whose classrooms I was in. I want to be really consistent about that, so folks know, what I saw when I was in there and why I was in there. And then, of course, there's always going to be those meetings that we have, and thinking both short term, medium term, and long term. What's coming up, what's on the horizon. We're going to have student elections coming up soon. We have prom at the end of the month. Sort of exciting times.
Yeah, it is.
Students. But then also, a conversation today about summer reading for faculty and what's that going to look like, and what are our PD days in the calendar for next year. So it's I think it's always interesting for those of us in education. Our calendar just feels very different than the calendar other people are on. We're on a very different cycle.
Yes. So you mentioned like the day school. Again, maybe I'm over like thinking this. Is your calendar pretty much the same? Is it like you start in late August, early September through May? Is that correct?
Yeah, great question, Jared. So we will start our preseason athletics in August. Traditionally, our first day of school will be the day after Labor Day. Sure. And then we'll run through graduation is always the first Monday in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Earlier, you kind of talked about some of the things that the Bullis School is known for. What my question is, what would you say your school is known for? And maybe what has been your focus the last few years?
Sure. One of the things that we've prided ourselves on is finding that balance for our students around sort of their academic, athletic, arts experience, and having an opportunity for family time and hobbies and all of those things outside sports, maybe that go into part of being an adolescent in addition to schoolwork. So really making sure that we're not asking too much of them academically, but also giving them opportunities to find success and then go on to strong colleges and universities that they're aspiring to attend. So working towards that. We have been known for some strong athletic programs, as I mentioned before, and our football, lacrosse, and basketball programs. Our track and field program has some top ranked relay teams in the country. We have 2 of our girls relay teams are number 1 in the country right now. Wow. So that's been really fantastic to see their growth. And then also in the classroom, we've looked at providing some more opportunities outside of a sort of a more traditional liberal arts type program, and really expanded our STEM program, giving our students an opportunity to focus on some engineering ideas and aspects. I mentioned the entrepreneurship program. We have a visual and performing arts program. We've had 2 students in the last couple of years put out EPs, which has been pretty amazing. These kids are making their own, recording their own music, and seeing the collaboration that comes out of these programs. One year, we had a dancer who did some choreography, another student who's going to a fashion design program at Syracuse, and she designed the costumes, and another student was handling the lighting and the sound on the stage for a performance. So you have this cross-pollination of these different interests amongst our student body. And so I think that's really been something we've been able to showcase the last few years.
What do you see as the biggest challenge in your role?
I think it's finding that balance between, the needs of everybody in the community, right? I mean, that we want to make sure that we're student-centered in our decision-making, but also if you focus all of your time and energy on your students, your faculty are left sort of hanging there in the wind and trying to figure out, well, what about us? How are we preparing our students? Yet if you create a schedule that only supports your faculty, what does that mean for your students? Sort of then how are they, working into the plan? So I think it's about having that healthy and consistent communication with students, parents, faculty about the decisions around a schedule, the decisions around the academic programs that we're offering, the courses we're offering, and just being consistent in all of those conversations.
You've mentioned a few different professional practices that you use. You mentioned kind of getting into classrooms, giving that feedback. What is one other professional practice you use in your role that you would highly recommend to other administrators?
I think if you are able to have those weekly one-on-one sessions with sort of those direct reports of yours, I think that really goes a long way. And in those, to the extent possible, having those direct reports bring the agenda to you, sort of what's on their mind, what are they experiencing? And there's times where you may need to create the agenda and sort of drive it, and being clear on those days. Hey, coming into this meeting, I think it's important we cover this, and giving that sort of heads up. And another practice really, that's helped me and our office run, is Monday morning meetings with my admin assistant. Her and I just sitting down and saying, okay, what's going on this week? And I started those 3 years ago and probably should have started those 8 years ago, where we just sit down and map it out. So we're on the same page. She knows what time she might need to protect on my calendar. She's also going to be reminding me of events and things that I need to be ready for and prepared for.
So, okay. So let's come back. I want to talk about your weekly meetings with your admin assistant. You said Monday mornings, which are you, like mine right now, I think are Wednesday afternoons. Maybe that's not ideal. Are you big on those Monday morning? Does that kind of get your week started right? Or does it really not matter what? Okay. So talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So we meet at 8:30 on Monday morning. Our school day starts at 8. So usually by 8:30, any of the stragglers have come in and got their passes and are off to class by then. And so, we just sit down and we say, all right, let's take a look at this week. What's the communication that's got to come out of this office? Do we have any special events coming on this week? Or did she get any information over the weekend, or did I, from parents or faculty? We might be taking a look at subs, faculty we know are going to be out that week. And then we also always look a week ahead. So we're always looking at 2 weeks, and making sure that we're on that same page. And she's great at sort of holding me to that.
The other thing I was going to say is I love one-on-one meetings. You mentioned those. Like, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but that's like if somebody were to ask me my best professional practice, I would say it's those one-on-one meetings with your direct reports. And I was looking at my phone there. Episode number 100. I've actually interviewed Mark Horstman twice, who wrote The Effective Manager. Awesome book. And it sounds like maybe you're nodding your head. Maybe you're familiar with that book or you've read it, but episode number 100, Mark spends like literally a whole hour digging into those one-to-one meetings and why they're important and why you should always hold those with direct reports. So I love that. When you say with your direct reports, just give me an idea. Who would that be in your role?
Sure. I actually have 10 to 12, and I don't have weekly meetings with every single one of them. They talk about to be an effective manager, it probably shouldn't be more than 4 to 6, but it is what it is. So we have a person who's assigned to each grade level. They're also a teacher, but they have a reduced course load so that they can then tend to 9th grade needs, or 10th grade or 11th grade or 12th grade. So it's sort of a grade level dean system. They're the point of contact for students, for teachers in those grades. The 9th grade English teacher would go to the 9th grade dean, parents as well. And so they're really sort of there to provide that pastoral care and sort of that oversight and support, that students need. And we were very intentional for one for each grade level, because 9th graders need different support than 12th graders. So I meet with each of them weekly. Our director of college counseling and I meet every other week. And I sort of alternate that with our school counselor. And that's, again, sort of checking in. And those are going to be, again, they're bringing the agenda, standard meetings, but we also can check in. We're in the same building, as needed, and have conversations. I also have our academic support team. We have 4 of them, 1 for each grade level. And again, we'll all sort of come in together. They bring the agenda and the topics for us to discuss. So again, some folks are going to be weekly and then some are bi-weekly. And then lastly, our academic dean as well. And she and I are in a number of meetings together already every week. So we meet every other week as well.
Okay. Hey, let's shift gears here. You mentioned The Principled Leader earlier, your book that's coming out here. Gosh, man, that's exciting. You and I've kind of talked from time to time about the book writing journey. Maybe just tell us, like, how did you come to a point where you wanted to write a book?
A great question. It probably started about 3 years ago. It was over the summer. I was just putting down some ideas, some thoughts about how I wanted to sort of share this path that I was on and some changes that I was making. I felt that here on campus and in work that I was following one sort of set of principles and guidelines about how I wanted to carry myself and how I wanted to support others. But I didn't always have that same consistent approach at home. And so when you have that dissonance between sort of your dual roles and who you are as a husband, as a father, and then also, as a school leader and all of those things, and just recognize that if I wanted to be successful in both areas, I needed to break that dissonance. I needed to bring it together. And so that's where I started looking at these different principles that guide my decision-making and my habits and my choices at work, and what I needed to do with some of those choices at home as well and in my free time.
So you talk about these principles. Is there like a set number of principles that you outline throughout the book?
There are, and as I put in the book, by no means is it an exhaustive list, and nor am I saying that you can certainly follow all of them. But I break it down in the book around relationship principles, leadership strategies, fitness principles, which I know is right up your alley, Jared.
Yeah.
Decision-making principles, and sort of looking at all of those aspects. And the more consistent you can be across your life with those, decision-making principles, I think the more successful you're going to be, that the happier you're going to be, the more balanced you're going to find yourself.
It's ironic. Over the weekend, I started rereading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The beginning of that book, the first 40, 50 pages, he hammers home the idea about falling back on principles when you make decisions, so I just picture, I just love, I've seen some of the books that you've recommended, some of the books that you read, some of the books that you enjoy. And I just think this book is going to be right up that alley. I think it's going to be outstanding.
I hope so.
Yeah. When you mentioned before, okay, when do you think, when can we expect the Principled Leader to be out and available?
The hope is that it'll be out in November. I should have some more information in the coming months about sort of where it is in terms of the publication process, but we're definitely looking for a November release.
Awesome. And I know you're a ways out and you're kind of working through the process. Where do you envision people being able to purchase that book for you or from you?
It's going to be on Amazon is where we're looking. I'm excited to be working with Road to Awesome as a publisher, and we're going to also look at some other avenues as well for distribution, but absolutely on Amazon.
Okay. So cool, man. I think we talked a little bit before the show. I always love hearing what is your habits for writing? Like, just show us behind the scenes. Obviously, to put together a book is no easy task. I mean, you probably have a couple hundred pages or something like that. What does your writing system look like?
So for a while, it was just in the summer, when we have a little bit more time. And that's sort of how it got started. Like I said, about 3 years ago, was just putting some ideas down in the summer and sort of bullet points, and not really sure what was going to come of it. It's a little bit like my journaling practice and my reflection practice. And then, really it was a year ago of saying, all right, I think it's time for this to come forward, to really put it out there. I felt more comfortable about the choices I was making, the principles I was leading, and got to the point that I felt it needed to be out there for others to see. And so at that point, it was just sitting down and saying, okay, it's going to be a minimum of 30 minutes a morning. And that's how we're going to do this, and shift some things around in my day, and how I'm going to have my day and start off my day, and getting to that point where, till it got complete, so to speak, and then shared it out with some folks to get some feedback, some professional colleagues and people in my life. And then took that and went back through and, okay, where can I strengthen this? What are some aspects of this book that, are going to take away from the message I want? What are some aspects that maybe I want to expand on a little bit, and sort of going through that process and getting to the point that I felt it was ready to share out, and then send it to some publishers and see what kind of feedback I got.
So cool. Last question on the book, audience. Who is the audience for this book? Who would enjoy picking up this book?
I think it's absolutely for current leaders and aspiring leaders. As I go back through and I read it and review it, I know that there are aspects in that book that I'm still aspiring to. And, one of the reasons I do want to share it out and have it out there is people can hold me accountable and say, this is something that you say is important to you, something you value. Are you doing this on a regular basis? And so I think it's for people in leadership positions to see sort of where they are in terms of their decision-making, their values, are they living their principles? And then I also think it's for aspiring leaders, because one of the ways that you get an opportunity to be a leader is by making decisions in a certain way, and the way you carry yourself, and the way that you lead with values and engage with colleagues and peers. So I would say it is absolutely for current and aspiring leaders.
Awesome. Anything else you want to share about the principled leader?
I think that's it for right now. Like I said, I'm really excited about getting it out in November, and hope people are able to pick up a copy.
Awesome. Hey, if you're just joining us late, this is episode 109. I am speaking with Bobby Pollicino here. Scott, I keep messing up that last name. I'm just not good at Bobby Pollicino. He's the head of the upper school at the Bullis School just outside of Washington, D.C. He's been there for 8 years. He's actually been a member of the Bullis faculty since 2003.
Yep.
Coming up on 20 years next year, then it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
Time's flying by, huh?
It is. It is.
Okay. So, hey, we're going to finish off this show for another 10, 15 minutes with just some quick hitter questions. Just kind of dig into just some things about you. Let's start off with, hey, if somebody is visiting your area now, do you live in, am I saying that right? Potomac?
Potomac.
Do you live in Potomac, or where do you, I'm looking at the map right now. There's just cities upon cities upon cities. The whole area is just a massive metropolis.
Yeah. The DMV, as we call it.
The DMV.
As you mentioned, we are just outside of DC. So obviously, if folks have never been to DC, it's hard to tell them to not hit the mall and see the monuments, which are always so impressive. Or if you're out here at this time of year for the Cherry Blossom Festival. But I have to hit up the town where I've been living with my family for 15 years, Poolesville, which is about 30 miles outside of DC. It's a small town. And one of the reasons it's so great is it just has this small town feel still that you wouldn't expect being so close to Washington, DC. It's actually closer to Virginia. It's right on the Potomac River. Some historical battles were fought there in the Civil War right there on the Potomac. There's a ferry that actually crosses the river there that you can take in your car. But one of the things we have in Poolesville, it's just these small town little shops that you can go into, and little restaurants, bakeries. We have an outdoor education company out there called Kaleva that has had the #1 rated haunted forest. So if you're out there in October, that's a phenomenal show and an opportunity. I've gotten pulled into working there a few times in costume. That same location also does these family pizza nights on Friday nights, and kids are zip lining and rock climbing and just enjoying the beautiful weather out here in the summer. There's a local winery and brewery not too far. And like I said, the Potomac's right there, and you can actually get on the towpath, the old C&O Canal. And you can walk along the canal, and you're right between the Potomac River and the canal. So there's so many bike trails, hiking trails. You're on the river if you wanted to fish. There's a lot of green space out there. So it's just, you don't realize some of the green space you can have outside of the nation's capital.
Yeah, you're right. I'm looking at the map right now. It's about 30 miles northwest of DC. And you're right. All I see as I zoom back out, I'm seeing all these like roads and all these metro, highly densely populated areas. And then you go to this one little area, it looks like, which is some greenery, and it looks like it's in Poolesville. What you just said in the last 2 minutes could easily be used on like a commercial for Poolesville. I feel like for attracting people to the area. That place sounds awesome.
It is pretty great for sure.
So let's just do this. If somebody's I'm going to throw you on the spot here. somebody's visiting DC and maybe they're landlocked, they're stuck down, in the DC area. Is there a restaurant down in that neck of the woods that you're like, hey, you've got to check out this place. Do not miss this place. Can you think of one spot for us?
That is tough for me because having 3 children at the ages that I do not get down there too much into those opportunities. I would say if you could get down around Nats Park, there's some phenomenal restaurants and opportunities down there. The Salt Line is a restaurant that I would definitely recommend folks checking out. Know somebody that works in there, and also some Washington Nationals have been a part of that. So I would say the Salt Line.
That's okay. So when you say Nats Park, that's where the Nationals play, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Hey, you are a big avid book reader. You're writing a book. You're about to finish your own book. What is the one, or maybe even give us 2, 1 or 2 books that have just greatly influenced your life?
I would say one that I just really enjoyed and I highly recommend to folks is Tim Ferriss' Tribe of Mentors. The reason I enjoyed that book is, the way Tim wrote it, he just interviews so many different people from so many different walks of life, and he's asking a lot of them the same questions. And it's just an opportunity to learn from all of these different people that you might not otherwise get. And you can flip through it to someone that because you think you'd want to hear about them, or maybe it's someone that you've never heard of before. There's a couple interviewed in there, emigrated from Poland. They're weightlifters, Jerzy Gregorek. He had such a great quotation in there that I loved around hard choices, easy life, easy choices, hard life. And it's just such a great line, and I wouldn't have come across it if I hadn't read that book. And I actually, for an opening faculty meeting one August, took the 8 questions that Tim asked throughout that book, and I answered all of them, and I put it out to the faculty, and I shared it with all of them, and then I asked them to pick 5 questions that they wanted to answer. And then when we came back together for meetings, had them just partner up and share out and say, is there one question that you would like to share with somebody else? And just being able to have those connections. So that's definitely a book that I would recommend. I just think it's a great book. Another one that I think's been important, and I know folks have probably read it, been around for a long time. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. I think as we hit different points in our life, our career, wherever we are, just trying to figure out, what it is that we are looking for, or where we can find ourselves to be helpful to our, fellow man, woman. I just think that the information he shares, the experience he shares, really resonates with you about, the opportunities that you have every day to positively influence those around you.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Tim Ferriss for a minute. I love Tribe of Mentors. He's also got another book, Tools of Titans.
Yep.
Which is very, very similar. If you're looking at, and I love it because I think you said it. I mean, you can just bounce around. You can pick up a chapter, read it, hear from these people who are doing amazing, amazing things across all genres. And he asks those same 8 or so questions. And it's just 2 fascinating books. I completely agree. I'm glad you brought that up. Hey, we always ask this question: in your neck of the woods, what's the major gas station or convenience store? Is there one?
No, there's not really. It seems like they all just different ones that pop up at different places. So we don't really have a major one. 7-Eleven, I guess. Okay. Not many of them have gas stations anymore, but they're convenient. They don't have the gas at the pump.
Wow. So you're hopping into 7-Eleven, and I don't know if you're starving. It's been a long day there at work, or you're going on a little road trip with the kids, whatever it might be. What are you grabbing to eat or drink when you pop in a convenience store?
I try not to do that too often because I get too many requests from the kids.
Yeah.
But usually I'm going to go with, I'm a pretzel person, the salt, going to grab pretzels. And then quite honestly, you'd probably be a bottle of water. would be usually what I would go to, or sometimes might grab a sweet tea depending on if I need a little bit of boost of energy.
Okay, so pretzels is it like rolled gold then, or is there anything special? You doing the twists? You doing the anything
I would
special?
say I do like the thin crisp. The roll gold's a good one, and that's a good one to go with.
Okay. Has Dots gotten big down there? Dots pretzels?
No.
Oh man, they got this amazing. They're huge up here. They've spread like wildfire. They got this really unique seasoning on them. Dots pretzels.
All right.
If you see a bag, it's like a red and black bag. If you see a bag, if they make their way down to the DC area, check it out. You won't be disappointed. Gotta take a look, man. They're huge up here. Hey, UFC. You talked about jujitsu earlier.
Yeah.
Are you a big UFC watcher?
I'm actually not. Sometimes I'll watch the highlights on ESPN just to see if there was a particular move or something like that.
Yeah.
Something we might be learning in class, but don't watch a lot of it.
I mean, do you have a favorite fighter?
I don't watch that much of it. Now, it's funny. You mentioned the reading before. I would say, in the last 5 years, my TV watching has gone down quite a bit. Just not having the time and preferring to spend it reading.
Okay, so talk about your reading habits then. We talked about the writing habits. I get a lot of questions from people like, how do you get in a good reading habit? What are your reading habits?
So for every night before I go to bed, I look to get in bed by, if I can, 9:15, 9:30, because I get up at 4:30 every morning to work out. So I want to make sure I'm getting enough sleep. And then it's just, got to get in at least 20 minutes of reading, and have my pencil there and I'm sort of circling or starring, marking up the book. I really like to have that book in my hands. My wife would prefer me to go to the library and not be continuing to buy these books. But I like to be able to mark them up. I don't want a Kindle. And then I go back after I finish a book. I sit down and go back through and review it and have a large Google Doc that has all my notes from all the books that I've read to see sort of, what I can share and put out into the world.
We have very, very similar approaches to that. I do almost the exact same thing. I've got a system where I take notes. I have a way of marking the pages. I take those notes, I transfer it to a Google Doc, basically, like you said. And to me, that helps, It helps with retention, right?
Absolutely.
And implementation. So I love that. You mentioned working out in the mornings. What's your workout look like these days?
So I get up at 4:30, like I said, start out with a little stretch. And then depending on the day, I'm either going for a run or I'm going to get on the bike. I'm excited for the weather to warm up so I can start riding outside again in the morning. Riding the Echelon bike inside doesn't have quite the same feel for me. I prefer to be riding outside, get back and then, kettlebell or dumbbell workout for 20 minutes or so. And then I'll wrap that up with a Headspace sort of meditation.
Wow.
That's usually sort of my morning, and try to be done right by 5:45 when the dogs are ready to go out and got to start getting everybody up for school.
I love everything you're saying, man, from the kettlebell to the Headspace. I mean, a lot of those stuff, quite honestly, I got those ideas from Tim Ferriss's books, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Headspace a little bit. I haven't really been doing much meditation recently. I've gotten some kind of mindfulness tricks that I use, but talk to us about Headspace.
Yeah, it's good. It's free for educators, which is fantastic that you can have that. So you should look into that. It's probably not as much time as I should give it, but I like the fact that it can be flexible. Sometimes I'm a little slower in the morning on my run than I had hoped. And so I look at it and say, all right, I'm going to do a 1-minute breathing exercise instead of the normal 5-minute, or maybe I'm going to do the 3-minute or whatever it is. I'm not great at meditation, so I love the guided meditation that they have on there. Someone who's talking and reminding you to stop letting your mind wander. Just such an important time to just try and focus before the day picks up, because I'm sure, in your job, Jared, you wake up just like I do and your mind starts going and you start thinking about, I got to do this. I got this meeting. I have this person I got to reach out to. And so to try and set aside that, whatever it is, sometimes only 1 minute, ideally 5 minutes, where it's just, getting in, that breathing, and that thought process of sort of clearing my mind. And then, I go from that into my morning journal where I reflect on the previous day and try to get all of that out of my head as well. So it feels like, really a fresh start to the day.
Yeah. You've mentioned lacrosse a few times, coaching, it being big at your school.
Yeah.
Those of us, I'll be honest, those of us here in the Midwest don't know much about lacrosse. Convince me, why is lacrosse this great sport?
So it used to be played by the Native Americans, and there was a time when it was used to settle disputes. So that's something, growing up in New York, where there are several reservations, and tribal lands up there. It's something that sort of, we all knew about growing up and playing. The name was Begataway, which was little brother of war. And so it's just a sport that I've always loved since I grew up playing. I started playing when I was 10. It's a great mix of hockey and basketball, a lot of the same concepts, of how you play offense, how you play defense. It's just an athletic game, that's fun. It's fast paced. It gets up and down. It's an exciting sport to watch. It continues to evolve and grow. It's changed a lot since I played in the 90s in college. And it's something I just really am excited. I get to coach. My daughter and my son both play right now. And that's fun to be out there and share the game with them.
Really, really cool. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, here in the Midwest, there's not a single high school in the state of Iowa that has lacrosse.
Wow.
I'm not sure if there's anything in the state surrounding us either, quite honestly. I think if you get up.
Yeah, Colorado has grown a lot in the last 25 years. California's probably been in the last, 2 decades, really the last decade that it's gotten really big out there. The big surprise a few years ago was the University of Utah decided to add a Division I men's program because there's not a whole lot of lacrosse out there. It's also started to get big in the state of Washington. Which was a surprise. One of my former high school teammates actually coaches a team out there that he's brought out east sometimes. So it seems to have jumped over the Midwest, so to speak. I think it got to Michigan and then sort of popped over to Colorado and California.
Crazy. Well, we got here wrestling is that's one that's huge here that you get to some of the East Coast, down south, West Coast, it's not as big, but very, very fascinating. Hey, you've talked about, you seem like a productivity type person. You've talked about some tips for like reading and Headspace and working out and that sort of. Any other productivity tip that you want to share with the audience?
I find my most productive days are when I take a look at, what I'm hoping to accomplish is adding that MIT at the bottom, most important task, and sort of putting those 2 or 3 things down there just as a reminder. If nothing else, those have to happen today, because as school leaders, we can get pulled in a lot of different directions that we didn't anticipate at 8 o'clock in the morning. So making sure that those happen, I find is helpful. The other piece for me, I keep a small whiteboard in my office, and I have my Eisenhower matrix on there with my, important, urgent, urgent, not important, and breaking that down. And really, I look every Friday at what do I need to update for the following week. So when I come in on that Monday, I can just glance down, take a look at that and see what my focus needs to be.
Hey man, we've covered a lot of stuff in this show. Is there anything that we did not get a chance to talk about that you really were wanting to share with the audience?
The one thing, Jared, I would just add that I think has really helped me is getting into, in addition to that daily reflection for me, is adding an aspect of that includes a gratitude journal. Every morning, asking myself, what 3 things am I grateful for, and writing those down has had a pretty profound impact in my outlook and sort of how I approach day to day and how I approach the work. One story I share around that, because I never would have believed that a gratitude journal would actually change your mindset. A longtime Buffalo Bills fan, a struggling Buffalo Bills fan, especially growing up in the highlight of those 4 Super Bowl losses.
Yes.
But Sean McDermott's first year, the Bills go to the playoffs, and I get a text from a coworker and it says, "Hey, congrats, the Bills are going to the playoffs." And I texted back, "It just extends the season by a week before they lose." And before I hit send, I deleted it. And I wrote, "Can't wait till they take care of business this week and head to Foxborough and take care of Brady," which of course Buffalo did not win their first round playoff game. But I know, 5 years ago, I never would have changed that text. And it just recognizing what we have and what's around us on a daily basis really helps us, just look at life differently. And I really am a big fan of that idea of a gratitude journal, and definitely suggest folks take a look at that.
So I don't want to end on a low note, but it was the Bills who lost to the Chiefs, right? Like with 12 seconds. I mean, I didn't even watch that game, but I saw the highlights at the gym. You guys gave the ball back to the Chiefs with 12 seconds left.
12, they might have won. It was 13.
13 seconds. And they scored. They went down the field and scored in 2 plays.
They got a field goal. Yeah, it was. It's funny. I have my 10-year-old son. I've successfully made him a Bills fan. He has no idea how good he has it in terms of the Bills going to the playoffs these last couple of years.
Yeah.
But my wife and daughters were in bed, and I told him we couldn't be cheering. So there was some silent cheering as the Bills kept scoring touchdowns, and then he was pretty distraught at the end of the game, as any 10-year-old NFL fan would be.
Oh my gosh. But hey, you guys gotta keep at quarterback there, right? With Allen.
Yeah, we think Josh Allen is, and they've made some off-season moves in the free agency market, bringing in Von Miller to bolster the defensive line. Coming off his Rams Super Bowl victory. So we'll see what the fall brings. To the Buffalo Bills.
They used to always say you couldn't bring the big names to Buffalo. They used to always say that, but you're bringing in Diggs. You brought in the guy you just mentioned. Von Miller, you guys got to go in there. So congrats, man. Hey, thank you. Thanks so much, Bobby. This is Bobby Pollicino. He is the head of upper school at the Bullis School in Potomac, Maryland, which is just outside of DC. And you've sold me on this book, man. I think it's going to be great. I love what you said, the principled leader. I love those different topic areas you're going to cover. It kind of covers all aspects of life for an educational leader. I think it's going to do great. So we'll be keeping an eye out for that in November. We'll make sure to order that off Amazon or reach out to you and find out how to get a copy. So, hey man, I appreciate the time. Have a great rest of your spring here, and let's just keep in touch, right, man?
Absolutely, Jared. I really appreciate you having me on, and wish you all the best and look forward to staying in touch.
All right, man. Hey, have a good night.
You too.